Welcome back, my fellow YouTube friends. I'm Gene Della Sala.
And I'm Hugo Rivera. How are you doing today, Gene?
Hugo, we're doing great. If you notice, we're in a different venue today.
Absolutely. Why don't we go ahead and tell people why?
Well, I thought it'd be important. We always talk about, ideal setups and rectangular rooms and getting everything perfect in measurements and speaker placement. But what do you do when you have a real room like this room?
Exactly.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is a family room. It's a dual purpose room. It opens up to a kitchen. It's not a perfect rectangle. I can't do the math lab on it. I can't do my little calculations to get perfect placement of speakers and everything. But at the same time, I want to enjoy a home theater experience in here with my family, and I want it to not be an eyesore.
And I would say that that's pretty much kind of like the situation that a lot of people are in,
This is a very typical room in Florida. I've been to a lot of people's homes. They have these kind of rooms where they're trying to integrate everything into a wall unit, and they can't put speakers on the floor. So I've come up with a little solution in this particular case. Again, haters are going to hate. They're going to look at this and they're going to say, oh my God, your speakers aren't perfectly placed, or they're too high, or this. But you know what? It's either we have this, or we have a fancy intercom system with all in-ceiling speakers, or you have nothing.
Exactly.
I choose this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me explain a little bit of what we did. So we have this kind of built-in wall unit that the builder made for the home. And I figured out a way that I could optimize it for equipment. And I've got these incredible RVH status acoustic speakers and the matching center channel. I didn't want to put them on the floor because for obvious reasons I didn't want to take up floor space and people kick it over or have kids over or whatever. And I didn't want to just basically put these in another room and not have a home theater in here. So what I did was I put them on top of this wall unit, okay? And I used these Audioholics pads to isolate the sound from the cabinet, because when you put a speaker on top of a cabinet, you're going to transfer the resonances from the cabinet or just from the sound waves coming off of the baffle of the front of the driver into here. This helps you do two things. This helps you decouple it from the cabinet to stop that resonance, and it's also, you notice there's a slope.
Right, exactly. And I think that it's important to explain why you have that slope, because a lot of people, I've noticed, Gene, they go ahead and they put their speakers, first of all, without the Audioholics base, and second, they put them like completely straight. Okay.
Yeah, and if you put them straight at ear level, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're above ear level, like in this case, you're sitting on a couch and the speaker's up here and you're down here, that tweeter is basically firing over your head and you're just hearing the off-axis response. Mm-hmm. So in many ways, at high frequencies, it operates like a ray optic.
Right.
And if you angle that tweeter down towards the listening area, you're going to hear more of that direct sound and less of the off-axis. And that's what makes a speaker like this, even though it's not ideally placed, a much better solution than sticking speakers in the ceiling for the front 3 LCRs. Now you're hearing all the frequencies off axis, and those speakers are further away from you, so you're getting more of the ambience, less of the direct sound. Mm-hmm. So by doing this, you preserve more of the direct sound, you get the speakers firing directly at you, you're not getting the off axis as much as you're getting more of the direct, and that's really what you want to do. And ideally I would have these a little bit spaced out more, so I kind of towed them out a little bit rather than towing them in. That way it just covers a wider listening area, and it's done really well.
Yeah, I believe so. Once again, I just want to remind people, especially the ones that are just starting out, if you want sound from a specific source, a specific place, that's where you want to put the speaker.
Yeah, we don't do any bouncy house Atmos reflection speakers in this room. I've actually got a pair of in-ceilings, and we'll talk about that in this video. I'm using those as back channels, not as height channels, because I built this system before Atmos existed. And my personal experience and my personal view is I'd rather get 7.1 going before I get 5.1.2. I like having the base 7 speakers going because there are a lot of Blu-rays that are encoded in 7.1. So why are you going to miss those back channels just to add height?
Exactly.
I would do the height after the fact if you have the ability to do the height, and not do romper room bouncing house speakers, but do real discrete speakers.
Exactly. Yeah. So how about the subwoofers? Because I see you have a couple of subwoofers over here.
I did, and most people, they say, oh, I can't put one sub, let alone 2 subs in a room. Well, I say, yeah, you can. You just have to be creative. And I found 2 locations. They're not the ideal locations. They're diagonal locations on opposite ends of the corners. They work good, but with EQ, they work really good. Okay, so by EQing them and getting the delays right, I've actually been able to calibrate across all the seats. Even the mother-in-law seat is pretty good too, by having 2 subs. Couldn't do that with 1 sub. And the way I snuck these big subs, and I got 2 JL E112s. We reviewed these. These are big subs,
Big.
medium-sized subs. But I put one behind this couch, so it's out of sight, out of mind. And then I put one in the corner of the room by this plant. And you know, the wife approves.
It blends in perfectly. It's not like it's, sticking out or anything,
Yeah, I mean, you're not stumbling over it. It doesn't look bad. It's not an eyesore. It matches the color of the speakers. I got semi-gloss black in all the speakers, so it looks like the system is all as one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Now, another cool thing I did was I wanted to put as big of a TV in here as possible. So I got a 58-inch LCD. I had these cavities made, so I put my power protection here. God, believe it or not, I have an old VHS, Super VHS. We still have some VHS.
Amazing.
We've got a FiOS box. We've got game systems here. We got the Wii. And then I had built these cabinets here where you put the equipment. You got the Yamaha receiver. We got actually Denon 3-head tape deck, an Emotiva amp to run distributed audio throughout the house, and an Oppo BDP95 Blu-ray player. So we've got all the equipment in here. What I would recommend, rather than building these custom cutouts, is I would cut this whole thing out and get a rack like from Middle Atlantic that runs on metal rails, so you could slide the equipment out and you could do all your connections. See, right now this is a chore to go and change the equipment. I didn't have enough foresight to think I should have done a roll-out rack as opposed to doing a fixed cabinet. So guys, when you're planning to do a kind of wall unit, think about that, because that really makes a difference. So again, you close these doors and the equipment's not an eyesore. So when people tell you, oh, I can't have a home theater in my room because it's going to stick out and I'm not going to have a high wife acceptance factor, I say shenanigans on that. Because you can make it work. You can integrate your stuff into a wall unit. You could put your speakers above the TV and point them down rather than using in-walls and having a fancy intercom system. And then for the surround channels, we have on-walls for the side channels. They're bipole speakers, so they provide a very wide dispersion because they have drivers on both sides of the baffles. And then we've got, I wanted back channels, Hugo. I have no back wall in this room.
Right.
So what I did was the next best thing. I put in-ceiling speakers behind the listening area. And a lot of people don't even consider that, but I've found it works amazing. In this room has so much spatiality in the surround field that I'm not even going to add Atmos in here. I'm not. I put on a bunch of stuff and you can hear, because of the back channels are up above you. It's amazing. Like the rain scenes, even from the Atmos demos in true HD, sound elevated.
That's excellent. I mean, honestly, it's a great compromise, Gene, because you have these nice speakers over here as opposed to having everything up in the ceiling.
Right.
In the back, it makes perfect sense for what you wanted it, but for the front, obviously, you need these right there.
Yeah, and if you have more wall space, like if this wall unit would have extended the entire wall, I would have considered cutting out cavities in the wall and sticking the speakers in there, and then just kind of foaming all the inside of the cabinet so you don't actually change what the speaker sees. Because if you stick a speaker inside of a cabinet, you're going to change its acoustical properties unless, again, you isolate it and you stuff foam in there. So another thing I did with these speakers is I plugged the ports in the back because they're rear ported and I didn't want them up against that surface so close. So I plugged those ports. The speakers are crossed over at 80 hertz anyways because we've got dual subs in here. And it's very seamless. When you have dual subs as opposed to one, it really gets you a better integration at the crossover range. So you can't tell that you're listening to a sub-sat system. It sounds like a full range system.
Excellent. What do you recommend, Gene, for people that have like really tiny apartment rooms, Because over here you have the typical average, I think, family room.
Yeah.
But for people that are like, in a tiny kind of like studio, what would you recommend for that kind of situation?
There's a lot of good sub-sat systems that have these little kind of speakers, not the cubes, please. Don't get the full range little 3-inch whizzer cone wonders. You can get speakers, NHT's got them, even RSL's got a pair of speakers that have a 4-inch two-way. They're, maybe about this big. You get a bracket. There's a company called BT Audio, I think, and it has a rotating bracket. You stamp the bracket into the wall. Use, make sure you secure it into a furring strip or you use the metal dollies. And you just put it up a little bit above ear level, so it's people aren't bumping their head. You don't want, the thing you would do is if you're gonna put a speaker on the wall, you don't want it at the level where someone could walk into it as they're walking around the room. So I would recommend if you're gonna hang any speaker off a wall, angle it down, but keep it above head level, because people, especially when you have parties in a house, they just get kind of stupid and they forget, and you'll get people bumping into stuff. And believe me, you don't want someone hitting a speaker, hurting their head, or breaking your speaker and dropping it on the floor.
Especially during New Year's when you're serving alcohol to your people that you invited. Yeah, that can get very interesting.
Yeah. So, you know, if I would give it an order of priority, I prefer, if I can, I'd prefer to have box speakers, you know, at ear level ideally, if not above ear level, angle down. In walls are another great solution, you know, especially because you can get them at ear level. They don't stick out like an eyesore. They're flush to the walls. And, you know, at the very last scenario, I would say do an in-ceiling, but really try to stick the in-ceilings for the surround speakers, not the front. Do whatever you can to get your front speakers as close to ear level as possible on the same plane as the listener, not above you. That's the one area you really don't want to have speakers in the ceiling firing it down at the voice of God.
Top-notch advice, Gene. Excellent.
Yeah. And use 2 subs.
Yes, that helps tremendously, as we've discussed in some of our other videos. We've discussed this subject, so I'll link them up over here. Okay, Gene, anything else you want to add?
I think we're set. I guess what I would ask you guys is show us what you did, or tell us what you did in a non-ideal room like this. How did you, you know, basically, how were you able to come up with a 5.1 or beyond solution in a room that was not perfectly set up for that?
Right. And how do you feel about your solution? Do you think it's giving you the kind of like audio that you're looking for, or do you think it's kind of like so-so? Let us know below in the comments. And with that said, I'll invite you to subscribe to our channel so you go ahead and get our weekly videos. And also feel free to comment and share this video with all your friends. Until next time, keep listening.
Welcome. I'm glad that happened now. It's like there's freaking gremlins in here, man.
I swear.
Okay, is it recording, or are we gonna get that thing where it stops? Okay, we're good. All right.